Welcome to Business on Purpose, the podcast for hardworking entrepreneurs who drive our economy. I'm your host, Barry Barrett, and as a sales leader and business owner, I understand the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. Each episode, I am interviewing business owners who have faced the same struggles you have. Low revenue, a lack of scalability in their sales force. Together, we're going to explore their entrepreneurial journey and uncover the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. From mentors to advice, we'll dive deep into what has helped these business owners get unstuck and move forward towards success. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned entrepreneur, the podcast is for you. Be sure and follow and subscribe to this podcast as we learn from the experiences of successful business owners and navigate the road to entrepreneurship together. Let's get started. So welcome Phillip Petrie to the show. This is Phillip. He's a client of mine, and he does roofing, windows, doors, basically the exterior home improvement of your home if you need it. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a fellow visionary, big ideas. We joke around a lot. We have a really great relationship, and Phillip has a lot of value to give to people, not only just in his space, but he's one of these people who just think about all the things. And you're like, you think for a second that his brain is just twice as crazy as everybody else. And then at the end, he brings it back together and makes it fit together. And you're like, how did all those pieces fit together again? And so you got to have another 2 or 3 conversations with him just to catch up where he is. And so Phillip, welcome to the show. And I'm glad you're here. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Was that a good description of you?
I've never heard that description before. I guess I'll take it. I think you're pretty optimistic there.
Yeah, you'll let it sink in and then be like, what did he say to me again? Yeah, I just told you that's the way Phillip's brain works. I love it. So Phillip, just get right down to it. How'd you get your start in this entrepreneur thing?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think I was born that way. I was entrepreneurial from the time I was a little kid. And so I was always selling something or building something. And so I've always had a desire to be an entrepreneur. And then that parlayed into different business activities early in life, where I was in college and started painting was really the beginning of it, where I was summer job painting. And before I knew it, I was running the company, and the owner had just about disappeared. And I found myself running a little, I don't know, maybe $2 million painting company out of a little black notebook in my personal checking account. Not advisable, but I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's so fun. I didn't know you got your start painting. I did a little bit too. So how it happened is we bought our first home, and then I went back to school, and there's a big long story there, but I painted our house and I learned how to cut in, and I was like, okay, how do you do that? And then when I went back to school, I'm like, I'm not going to work for anybody else. I'm just going to go get some clients and just paint their house. How hard could it be? And then I landed a 5,000 square foot home all by myself. And it took me a very long time. And I'm like, oh, this is hard, but it still paid better than going to get a job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was my thought. I decided really quickly. I'm like, I'm not going to stick it out in this school thing. It's just not for me. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not going to study business. I'm going to just do it. And overall, I think it was the right decision for me, but not advisable for everybody.
Bad idea at the time, good idea 20 years later. Is that?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you started doing that, a $2 million paint company that you were running. What I'm hearing is I had an absentee owner, and he was like, all right, you got this. What happened next?
Then a few friends of mine in Akron, Ohio, decided to start a roofing company. I think it was 2008, right after a hailstorm had come through, and around a poker table, there was a guy who's a visionary like none other, who said, shoot, if they can do it, so can we. And so a group of friends literally printed out business cards on A4 sheets of paper and started knocking on doors the next day. We didn't know what a shingle was. And we just banded together and all started selling roofs. And I think, I don't know exactly, but I think if memory serves me, it was something like 12 million in sales in the first 16 months, something like that. A lot of hard lessons there. But that's how I got into roofing. It was amazing timing because it was 2008 and I was all new construction on my painting side. So I'd run my painting crews, get my trailers out at 4 o'clock in the morning, get the crews rolling, and then go sell roofs in the afternoon. And that year, I couldn't even believe how much money I was making. I'm like, this is insane. I'm selling roofs, running this business. But then the crash happened, and our new construction, we had a big new home builder in Ohio. We had most of their work, and they literally just disappeared overnight. But thankfully, this roofing thing was going. And I said, shoot, we'll just make a transition. We'll pivot and we'll go sell more roofs. And so I sold there and then became the production manager. My wife, ironically, was the first employee of the company and became the production manager and then COO. We expanded into a bunch of different states and then started our office here in Lexington, Kentucky as a remote operation. And then after I started having kids, we decided we wanted to settle down in Kentucky and bought the partners out of this entity. And I've been running here ever since.
I love that. That's a great story. So in the middle of that, because that's a lot. So
Yeah.
highs and lows, you told me about extreme highs, extreme lows, but you accidentally buffered your
Accidentally, that's the truth.
business.
Most of the good things that have happened in my life have been somewhat accidental. They have not been planned. I'll put it that way.
But that just shows you, like, and I talk to people about this, you just got to move. If you're moving, you get lucky. And I have an acronym. I talked about it yesterday in yesterday's podcast, but it's living under consistent knowledge. That's what luck means. And living is the doing. And then you're always learning, always growing, and then taking risks. You buffered yourself. So I want you to take us from just after 08. You just talked about your wife being your first employee. Like, there's got to be a lot more in that journey. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive there.
Sure.
And yeah, go.
Yeah, I think we were the team. She wasn't my employee. She was the company's employee. I was an employee as well at the time.
Yeah.
Of that company, just to be clear. But it's in hindsight, we were defining uncontrolled growth. Nobody had any idea what we were doing. We just liked each other and we wanted to make some money. And apart from growth, there was no real vision, right? I think it takes time to develop a vision and to settle into who we are as individuals and what we're trying to accomplish. And it was lots of learning, utter chaos, lots of wins, lots of losses. But I think most of my journey has been marked with failures rather than successes. I tend to learn better through failures, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, you and I resemble that. We like to half listen to people who tell us that we shouldn't do something. And they're like, okay, I think I can take that information and do it better. And then I finally figure out later that I didn't. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, totally. Totally. The journey of learning to listen to different perspectives and different personalities has been one of the most, I think, meaningful aspect of my growth over the years. And I didn't even realize I didn't know how to listen to people or even value people. I figured just more better, right? Just do more and it'll work out. It turns out there are better ways to do things than just faster, harder, with more intensity.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm hearing that is most of your business buying existing businesses that you're working for, or is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Or so are you starting a business too, because you were an employee and then you bought people out?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was an employee of the kind of the mothership of the company. And then we launched Kentucky with a small percentage of ownership that I had and my current business partner had. And then when we decided to downsize and prepare for family life, I needed to stop traveling so much. And I got tired of the uncontrolled growth side of things. So I thought I could do it better. And that's when we bought the partners out of the Kentucky division of the company.
That makes sense. I got it. So you talked about just doing more and just doing a lot of it. How did you go from doing more and doing a lot of it to being more focused? What did you have to do?
I think it was, ironically, after we bought out Kentucky, I did the same thing again. I just started growing and I realized that I had two big patterns that were destructive. And the first one was that I would hire people that I really liked that were way too similar to me. And then I would treat them exactly the way I wanted to be treated as an entrepreneur, with very little direction, very little leadership, zero accountability. If they're big enough and fast enough, they're going to be great. Just roll with it. So we opened up in Atlanta and Charlotte, and we grew top line a whole bunch, and then realized bottom line was never catching up. And I was sitting with a guy who's a current mentor of mine and dear friend. And he said, Philip, if I hear the words, I just need another X amount of millions of dollars to be profitable again out of you, I'm done. He was like, at some point, you got to quit this. If you can't make money where you are, you got to stop growing. And I said, what do I do? And he said, shut down Atlanta, shut down Charlotte, and focus on where you are and learn to do that well. And thankfully, I heeded his advice. We cut out 70% of our revenue overnight and turned it around. It's an incredible story. But the problem was that I kept hiring people that were just like me, or that I thought would be like me. They had similar levels of intensity. Ironically, I look back, probably all visionaries, and I just let them loose, thinking it'll work if we just do more. And it wasn't a good situation for anybody.
Yeah. One of the things that I say about you, and also other clients that are like you, and I resemble this remark too, is I think about a fireplace and a fire. So Philip is the fire, and if you hire a bunch of people who are fires, and
burn the place down,
you'll burn, right? So if you light the fire in the middle of my house, you're gonna have to rebuild the house because it's gonna burn down the fire. But I've got a fireplace, and if you put that fire in that fireplace, that structure, then you're gonna have a nice warm house. But you can't hire all the fires. You have to hire some fireplaces. And so I think that's probably where you started going. You said, okay, number one, we're going to do less to do more, because ego, that revenue number, that top line number is an ego number. Yep. And I know you had to take a huge hit in the ego department, right? Because we all have one. And what did that feel like to go, oh my God, especially for somebody who believes that more revenue is the fix for profitability?
Yep. I think there were two things that I realized through that process. One, I came up with a mantra, or maybe somebody else did. I don't know. I'll take it as my own though, but that in the future, I decided I want to grow based on people rather than perceived opportunities. And it's been one of my kind of mottos, that I'm done growing based on perceived opportunities. I've got to grow based on people first. The other thing that I identified through that was that my motivating factor, more than anything, was fear was controlling and driving me. And if somebody would have told me that, I would have said, you're crazy. Fear is not something that I experience. I'm just not a fearful person, so I thought. But really, fundamentally, fear was driving a lot of my decision, a lot of my desire for growth. And as that began to get resolved, and I started getting a high degree of freedom from the fear that I was experiencing internally, all of a sudden I was able to think clearly and see clearly. And I wasn't getting driven and pushed by the fear that was motivating me, but rather gaining in clarity about where we were going and what we were doing. And so the combination of the right people, and obviously in the right seats, and not operating out of fear, was the big game changer for me, at least, and for us.
Man, that's so good. I want everybody to listen to what he just said. The number one thing that I heard him say was he went from looking at revenue opportunities to looking at people opportunities, because if you have the right people, you're going to have the right revenue opportunities. Philip?
Oh, yeah.
So the other thing is, Jim Collins said this, you're more likely to die of indigestion of too many opportunities than you are starvation of not enough opportunities. So he shrunk his business back to a manageable level, and then got probably payroll in line first. Is that right?
Exactly.
Because no matter how—
payroll and marketing expenses. Yep.
Yeah, marketing expenses, right? Payroll is the number one expense of any business. I don't know how many times we shout this from the rooftop. And if you have too much payroll for the cash flow you have, you're in trouble. And you have to market your way to get more revenue, which creates more payroll. And it is this crazy perpetual cycle of death until you can no longer support it. The other thing is what motivated him. He went from fear motivated him, and now what is the emotion that motivates you today?
That's a really good question. I'm not a big emotion person.
Fear's an emotion.
I think it can run deeper than that, though.
Now, wait a minute. You and I just had a 2-day annual session, and he says, I'm not an emotion person. But there was a one
Let's say
point.
I'm not a person who's aware of his emotions.
That's probably a better thing, because me and Phillip are open and honest. There's one point me and him are, we'll call it elevated talking back at each other, right, Phillip?
Yep.
Because that's how we prefer to communicate. Everybody else is watching. There's one person, Jacob, on your team. He was watching and enjoying the moment, right? And it was fun. And you're an emotional person. You may not be aware of your emotions, but what is that emotion? I'm going to ask it again.
I think it's excitement to watch the development of the people that are around me that I care about. That's the thing that makes me, I think I said to you, the thing that makes me excited about re-engaging a growth model is seeing the opportunity for growth in the individuals in the team. When you see them sitting in the right seats, the level of commitment, the level of excitement that they have for the organization, all of a sudden you can grow and it's enjoyable. Right? It's just a blast as opposed to being a chaotic mess.
So after knowing you for a year and a half, I wrote it down before you said, I put fear, and then under it I put love, because Phillip, you love your team. I've seen you fight for them. You and I have fought because you love them. And so it's, and when I say me and I fought, we fight with respect, right?
Sure.
And you love your team. That you really, when I'm in the room with you, I feel the emotion of love and with your team. So you may not be aware of it. I don't know, but that's what it really is. And that's why I think I know you're getting what you want from your business. So talk about how you have started to really care for your people, because not many people care the way you do, and then take action on those things.
Yeah, I think I know that one of the questions that you sent out was related to mentors, and that really plays into this factor. I think growing up, I had two big, I would say, influences that I can identify. One of them is a business owner in Elyria, Ohio. His name is John Beckett. He wrote a great book called Loving Monday. And he runs this, I want to say it's the world's largest oil burner manufacturing company. And I had the opportunity to sit with him lots of times as a boy, but I'd watch him and the way that he operated. He'd walk me through his factory and he'd show me that he had this gym that he put in. He'd pay his employees an hour a day. This is back in the early 90s to work out. He brought in the local university to teach courses inside of the factory during lunch hour and paid his employees to go to school. He did these just all kinds of things that he provided benefits for his employees because he absolutely loved them. And I watched the growth of their company that's now transitioned to third generation leadership, which is shocking. If you see it successfully being done, it's a rarity, and they have done it. And watching the way that he cared for his employees and for his team as a little boy stirred something in me. It gave me a vision for what business could be like. So as a young entrepreneur, I got to observe that and watch that and be around him and learn from him. And so that gave me a little bit of a far-fetched long-term vision. And then my mom and my dad modeled loving people to me. They modeled the value of relationships consistently, decade after decade, to where they have maintained relationships and valued relationships over anything else. And that just got instilled in my DNA. It's not something that's intentional or strategic. It's something that's born out of my experience and my faith that I don't have to work towards. I have to work towards practically loving people, right? In being considerate and learning to listen and value different perspectives. But the idea of deeply loving people is something that's a gift that I was given and that I get to enjoy. So I don't know if that answers that question, but that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I've gotten to know you and your brother, and I can see that. And when I think about my kids, I'm hoping that will be the same for them. And I think it is becoming that, because I didn't have that model, which I'm so glad that people do, because, man, what a great place to come from, that we can move forward with that. So that is really a great answer. So mentors are important. It's basically how I think most of us get to all of us get to where we are. So that is good. So where are you today in your business?
What way do you mean?
Just where's your business from the standpoint of, you used to be a certain place where you were trying to figure out everything and you were trying to add things. And so today you have a state of your business, you have a leadership team, you have a direction. What is that direction for your business in the next 12 months?
Yeah. So one of the big downfalls of the company that I was driving was we can do anything, the ego approach. So as we've laser focused on what you described as exterior home improvement and insurance restoration primarily,
Mhm.
but we're very focused. We've just seen an influx in the last, I don't know what it is, 2 weeks. I would bet we've brought in what we would usually bring in 6 months. And somehow we're keeping it's rolling and it's reasonably peaceful. And we've got an amazing leadership team in place, and we've got, some depth on the sales side. We've got some depth on the production side, and we're able to handle it. So I think we're poised for growth. I'm not interested in growth for growth's sake. It's just coming naturally. We've shut off all marketing sources, and it's just referrals and repeat customers. And the team is maxing out their capacity, I would say, right now. And so we're going to grow that team. We just made a few key big hires since we were together a week ago. And I think we've got good culture fits and good competencies in those hires. And I think we're poised for growth. I think my job at this point is more controlling the growth than anything else. We won't have a sales problem that I can foresee, but we might have an indigestion problem if we're not careful. So
Yeah. Selling too much of what you do, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always joke that then my job as a salesperson is to overwhelm operations.
Yeah, exactly. It's that healthy tension, right?
Yeah.
That I keep having to talk through between sales management and operations, that they get tense with each other. And I'm like, this is a good thing. We want a healthy tension between sales and operations. In production. We want that to be the case. We just need to learn how to process it in a healthy way and maintain healthy relationships through the tension. That's what my job is now, is teaching that.
I often tell people I can turn off the spigot pretty easily. It's turning it back on that's the problem. So if you want to turn off marketing, you want to turn off sales so operations can catch up, well, then that's going to create a lagging problem 6 months from now where it's really hard to turn that thing back on for multiple reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really tough.
So what's the trick? You've got this sales problem, we call it, right? You have opportunity after opportunity. What is the trick to helping operations keep up or make sure it's profitable? I'm sure there's more than one trick, but what is that?
I know we don't want to turn this into advertisement for EOS, but it's the systems, right? It's just the systems. So we're experiencing this growth. We've got the right people in the right seats, and having the systems that hold people accountable, but also serve people, right? So that's what I've realized, is that I thought it was primarily an accountability system, but the truth is the accountability serves for people to be able to enjoy and be peaceful and know what's expected. And because the systems are in place, largely thanks to EOS, it's almost a natural process, right? So we know when we're hitting the ceiling. We know when we need to expand. We can tell based on the metrics if our timelines are getting out of control, if we've got problems on the production side of things, if we can identify all those issues. And so it's way more comfortable. It's very odd to bring in as much business as we have and not be nervous about it. I'm aware of potential problems. They're going to happen, but we know how to deal with it because we have the systems in place. So a combination of the right people in the right seats, and then the systems not perfected, the systems being in place to a reasonable, healthy degree, make it possible. But if you lack one or the other, if you lack the right people in the right seats, or you lack the systems, you won't be able to grow.
You're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
All my clients say the same thing you did. I don't want this to be an advertisement for EOS. And I know it's not. I don't want to turn into that either. And I love that you said too, and I want you to hear, he said EOS. But it's not me. It's not him. It's like the system, the people. And you realize that the right people, they share your core values, the right seat, they're doing the right job, they have the capacity to do their job well. And then it's what we can provide as companies is the right system so as to not frustrate those people. And then they go to work, they do their job, and then Phillip, you get freedom, do you not? Talk about how you have created in the last couple of years by leading the company your own freedom, and therefore how do your people feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's more than leading the company. I think it's the letting go of the vine aspect of things that for me, letting go has allowed a high degree of freedom. It doesn't mean that I disengage or I'm not involved, but it allows me a high degree of freedom to be able to go and spend weekends on the lake and go on vacations and do things that historically I was never able to do because I was so in the business grappling onto every vine that I could possibly get a hold of. And the truth is, I realized this recently, you can't let go of the vine, you can't let go of the control if you don't have the people and the systems in place. It's just, that's suicidal, right? So you
That'll
almost
preach.
I've watched people who get that idea, big picture visionaries who want to be out of the day to day, but they haven't put any infrastructure and systems in place to be able to do it. And so where I'm so thankful for EOS, your involvement, the way the team is engaged is that as they've taken their own areas of responsibility, found greater degrees of satisfaction and freedom in their jobs, that's allowed me to do the same thing and focus on the things that are most important. The people in the organization being one of those things. And so my job is more of a culture manager, right? And I get to take care of people and try and look around a few corners to see where the problems are coming in their personal lives even. And that to me is freedom, that I get to do the things in my business that I love doing. And I don't get bogged down or have to do the things that I'm not good at, because there are people in place to do those things.
Rewind your life back when you had a hold of those vines. When you started letting go to people, what was holding you back from giving them that? Was it a feeling? Was it
fear?
Tell me what it was. Yeah. Fear of what?
Fear of losing, right?
Yeah.
Fear of losing.
And what is losing?
Losing financially, primarily, of getting into a tough spot. I think fear of losing control, though. Control is a big thing for a lot of us, but fear of losing control was definitely a big factor. I wanted to make sure I knew what was going on in every aspect of things, even if I didn't, right? Most of the time, my control was nothing anyways. It just felt like it was significant to me, but it was just a hindrance to everybody else.
Give me one thing that you feared letting go of that now you have freedom, because it's like it's 1,000-pound weight lifted off your shoulder that you no longer have to do, that you felt like you had to do.
I don't know how to pick one thing. I use the operations and production side of things. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to have control of it. We've got Jennifer, John, they've got it. They've got it under control. They've got people under them that have it under control. And I don't need to know the details of what's going on, because it's not helpful for them or for the organization for me to be involved in every nitty-gritty detail. Plus, I hate details. So
yeah. How's it different now that you have those two people doing that? How's the business different?
The business is fundamentally, it's different because it's operating well. So we're operating well, we're operating profitably. The whole feel of the business is different because everybody knows what they're doing and they know what's expected.
I was going to ask it this way. How much better is it being done now that you're not doing it?
It's a dream.
I didn't want to ask it that way, but I'm like, you know what? It's Phillip. I'm going to ask it exactly that way.
So much.
Yeah, I love it. I knew that's what it was. So much better. He's not doing it. And I want you to think about that. And we talk about it is Phillip, people like Phillip that are big visionaries, big idea people, know yourself and be free. And then we have the integrator. He's mentioned Jennifer, and know yourself and be stressed. So that's where it is. And some people love to be stressed, but we love to be free, right, Phillip?
I don't think anybody actually loves to be stressed. I think they just learn to live with it. I learned to live with it for a very long time.
I'm telling you, people do.
And
you don't see it. You don't understand it. You're like, how can they not like that? And you're like, no, they just love to get in there, get their hands dirty, get in the details, and just make stuff run. It gives them purpose in their life.
That's true. That's the thing, the idea of having more freedom. It's not just me that has more freedom, and it's not just me that enjoys things more. The goal is that everybody achieves that, right?
That is freedom for them, though.
Right. It might look a little bit different for each of us, but it's really, when we first started talking about this and talking about the idea of achieving a higher degree of freedom, in my mind, I thought we were just talking about the owners. But what I've realized is it's not at all. Everybody, we're incrementally working towards everybody in the organization having a greater degree of freedom, because there's less dependence on any single individual. It's the team that's coming front and center. And so that allows for a higher degree of intentionality about each individual's personal goals, and what their family situations are, and how do we come behind them and support them in achieving their goals. And the company's a tool for that if it's done right. And we're getting there.
The idea is to get the owners to understand that there's the main dysfunction that they have, and that's the need to be needed.
Yeah.
And it's because the owners, we think we need to be needed. We think everybody else needs to be needed. And so we have to get freedom for you to understand what it looks like for your people. And then okay, the people can have the same thing if we just structure this thing the right way. And that's what we want. And then it really does create purpose for people. So I love that.
Well, it's a problem for a lot of owners and a lot of people who are running businesses, is that I think we have so much deep-seated insecurity that we're dealing with, that we're trying to find our own identity inside of our business. So we're constantly needing to get that fix, right? That it's like, if I just jump in and I can fix the problem, I'm building my own identity. But as we become healthier leaders, that we realize we don't need to be central to everything. In fact, it's much better if we're not central to everything. But that's a process that's it's not easy to get to.
Yeah, we're a piece of the puzzle,
right?
Not the nucleus. Right?
Exactly.
So that's really good. So where are you headed? Where's your business going? What's the vision for the company?
I think we'll just continue. Obviously, we've got our kind of 10-year target, which right now we've realized is actually much lower than it should be. I think you pointed that out a few times. Realized, we're going to hit our 10-year target this or next year. Okay. We're going to rethink that. So we'll just continue growing. I think we're going to get back to opening up other markets. As we mentioned, I'm very experienced in opening other markets and expanding. I love expansion and growth. I just realized I only want it to happen now.
Profitably.
Right? Profitably and enjoyably and peacefully. That's really providing opportunities for people to grow inside the organization.
Yeah, and, that's so good.
It gives us the opportunity to serve more clients, right? Our industry is filled with so many companies that just fundamentally don't have the best interest of the client in mind. And I'm not saying we do that perfectly all the time, but I can promise you that's the intent and that's the commitment. And so the growth means we can serve more people, we can serve more people well, and we can provide more opportunity for people to come on board, to join the team, and to grow as individuals. When I look at the earning opportunity that we can create for people and the impact that it has on their families, I've got several sales guys that have come in the last year who just needed to provide for their families, right? They just needed to make more money. And that's great. Let's go help you make more money. And we've been able to achieve that, right? So it changes their lives and their families. And to be able to do that in an environment that also builds them up and encourages them towards the important things for their families, that's a blast. So we'll continue growing. We'll probably open up several new markets in the coming years, one at a time, and that's what we'll do.
I love it. I say there's a human profit, right? A person who tells the future, and then there's monetary profit that makes the future.
Right.
So you need to be able to be good at predicting the future, and then you need to be good at making money to make that future happen. So exactly. I think that's where you're focused on now, and it's not growth for growth's sake. It is profitable growth that creates freedom for everyone, and then you can grow into the future with a very healthy business. Love it.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. So you're sitting here, you're giving advice, 3 different people. 1, they are in their startup phase. 2, the second person is in their growth stage. The third person is in their scaling phase. Yes, sorry, scaling phase. And what's your advice to the startup?
I think the startup's just a grind. It's just a grind. And I think the more you can focus on the things that you love doing in the startup phase, instead of feeling the pressure of needing to do everything. There's obviously a financial pressure in the startup phase that you should hopefully don't experience in the later phases. that can really mess with your decision making. And so figuring out in the startup phase what you love and what you're actually good at, and doing the best you can to stay focused on that. I know in my various startup phases, there are times that you have to do things that you don't enjoy because turns out you need to bring in the dollars. But as much as you can in the startup phase, stay focused on what you're really good at, try and get that as clear as possible. And also you want to find out how the things that you're good at align with the things that you love. And as much as you can keep those two things in focus, I'm assuming you've got the drive, right? If you've got the drive and the work ethic, then you have to focus on those things. If you don't, just go get a job.
Yeah, if you're a person without drive, you are not an entrepreneur because it is hard.
Yeah.
I don't care how easy some people make it look. It is
Brutal.
hard.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So now, how about the growth stage? They're growing.
I think the growth stage is all about people. It's 100% people. And I wish we had been able to, if we had defined our culture earlier. So even when we were startup phase, if we had defined the things that we were focused on as far as company culture, that would have helped a ton in getting the right people in the right seats. And so just getting that understanding of being the right culture fit and being able to not just document it, but really understand it, that would have helped a ton. So I'll go back to the startup phase. Be thinking about culture. What are you trying to build? Because I don't think anybody starts a startup thinking it's going to stay a one-man show, right? The goal is to grow it. And so if you can begin documenting and writing down the culture, the values, so that can adapt over time and you can have more clarity when it comes time to grow, and that requires people, I think you can avoid some of the mistakes I made, which is what I did was hire people that were not the right culture fit because I hadn't identified my culture.
Right.
And so that's just all people. And the idea that people don't only work for money, right? Like you can get amazing people in that want to be part of your team if they're the right culture fit. And if they're the right relational fit, that you actually care for each other and you want to work together. And so the people is all the growth phase.
If you think about culture and people, when you get in science class, you've got the Petrie dish, which is not lost on me. Your last name is Petrie. That's good.
I've never heard that before.
I'm sure you haven't. But when it comes to that's sarcasm for those who aren't keeping up. So you put all this stuff into that Petri dish and you get culture. That's what that is. And if you get people who do not fit your core values, let's say, you're going to get a toxic culture. If you get people in that Petri dish that you should put this into your speech, by the way, this is good. You're not going to because it's too hokey. So then you put the right people in there that do share your core values. And going back to earlier, what Phillip was talking about, people like him, he wasn't talking about their culture, who they are as a person, their core values. He was talking about people who are charismatic, who can sell, who are driven, who have a lot of ideas. You get too many ideas person in the same industry or the same business, you get too many ideas. And so he's hiring the right people as far as core values, but they're different in their skill set. Is that how to line that up?
Absolutely. Yep.
Culture fit is all about who you are as a person. And I tell people, you don't want to hire people that you have to parent. They already have had to be parented well and show up as a human that has been parented well. You don't have time in an organization to be parenting people to do the right thing. And so that's why it's defined. But so many people think that core values is this, they just put it on a wall and they're like, okay, here we are, integrity, honesty, all the things. But you have to live those core values. And how do you show up every day and make sure you're living them, Phillip, that is attracting the right people and repulsing the wrong people?
I think that happens naturally if they're meaningful. And you're actually living by them. That happens very naturally. You've seen it in our organization where people are like, yeah, this isn't the right fit because one of our core values is effective communication, right?
Yeah.
And we can quickly say this person is not willing to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
That's a culture problem because that's one of the core things that we're committed to as an organization. One of of our core values is generous ambition. I know people roll their eyes at that one, but to me, it's almost the most meaningful thing, that I want to be surrounded by people who are fundamentally ambitious to achieve the goals, to excel in what they're doing, but that they do it with a spirit of generosity, right? So financial generosity is a part of that, but really more than that, it's generosity of spirit towards one another. That scripture talks about love, hopes, and believes all things, right? That we can actually believe the best of people. We can look for the best of people. So we can drive forward with tons of ambition, but we can do it with a generous spirit towards one another. And it's interesting, especially in a sales organization like us, how quickly you can identify that. Is somebody, obviously good salespeople are always money motivated and should be money motivated. That's great. But does that overwhelm their ability to care for people and deal with them generously? And that's where so much of the tension comes in sales organizations, is because your top producing sales reps decide that they're going to run the show. And that means for us, that's a bad culture fit. I've got some great top producing reps, but they're people who love other people. There's a degree of humility that they have that allows them to care for the people around them. And that fosters a healthy environment. Even though there's that tension between sales and production all the time, it can be done in a loving way, in a caring way, in a respectful way. That means we don't have turnover. In our industry, there's sales reps it's like a revolving door, right? They're just constantly hiring new sales reps. You've seen in our organization, there's almost no turnover in sales. We're starting to be hiring all the time, but we were able to stop hiring sales reps for 3 years, I think. And we didn't lose a single one. No, that's not true. We let go of a couple, but we don't worry about losing people because we're caring for them. And that's that generous ambition side of things.
Yeah. I want everybody to hear what he just said. He stated his core value, and then he just gave you the speech around what that core value means. And then what you do is over and over, you're telling people exactly what it means. Most people are afraid to lose a producing salesperson because they're afraid to lose the production of that salesperson. And then they're held over a barrel by that person, and they just have captured your mind, and it's all a lie. Because if you replace that person, then you will produce more in 9 times out of 10. Have you found that to be true?
100%. And the problem in a sales organization like that is that you think it's a revenue problem. It's always a revenue problem. And so the idea of losing your $1 million producer or one of your $1 million producers seems horrific. But if it is that bad to lose one top producer, then you've got a fundamental organizational problem. Right? It's an organizational problem if you're that dependent on a sales rep that you're willing to let them destroy your culture and run the show instead of allowing them to thrive and be who they're supposed to be while supporting and benefiting the company. So it's a dangerous road to go down if you're in a sales organization and you don't have your core values identified and you're not able to communicate them and hold people to them. And hold to them is too strong. That you can't maintain core values through the whole sales process and hiring process. There's a fundamental problem beyond sales.
That's good. So now you're giving advice for scaling a company. What is that?
Systems. That's all I can say. Assuming you have the right people in the right seats, the systems take care of the rest of it. And once you've got a core group of great people, you can trust them to evaluate the next great people, right? They'll all naturally hold each other accountable to the benefit of the company. And so if the systems are in place to where you can get ahead of the problems, to where you can hold, where people are held accountable by the systems and the systems are serving the people, I think we're on our way there. We're not there yet, but we're at the point of identifying how deeply valuable good systems are. And so it's good.
No truer words have been spoken. Thomas Edison started GE. He's not alive anymore, and GE's just fine. What Phillip said was, you hire the right people, create the right systems, and then they will hire the right people, because hiring people is a process.
Right.
And so that's how you get scalability in your business. Great. That's fantastic. Phillip, where do people find you?
Email me. P.Petrie, P.Petrie at Craftsmen, Craftsmen, Contractors with an S on the end.com.
Yep. And what's the website? I know you just said it in your email, but what's the website?
www.craftsmancontractors.com.
And Craftsmen is MEN,
Multiple
unlike
men. Yep,
MAN. So
that's right.
that's good. Phillip, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Lots of value to this episode. People could listen to it 3, 4, 5 times and get something new every time.
Hmm.
Really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.